Good evening. It's good to be out Saturday. This is the first day in which there wasn't this grayness hanging over the sky. And with Holly particularly, we're being very careful about the wildfires and the particulate coming down to our neck of the woods. In fact, going further than where we are in Virginia, but all the way down to the Carolinas. So we just were being careful, and I did a couple of sit-and talks, in part because I was getting home late. And the same happened yesterday. I started this morning talking to Canada and off the air. I thanked them for improving and celebrated the fact that it was getting safer for them at home. That is the wildfires. But it's a very serious problem, and we're going to see more of it. And you've heard me talk about the environmental distress that's awaiting us depending upon our latitudes and longitudes, what parallels we're at. The current crisis that we are celebrating is the indictment of Trump. First time in history a president of the United States has been indicted. And I hope that's going to be followed by convictions and sentencing and jail time, because we cannot do otherwise for the misconduct. And I'm hopeful that there'll be the other charges that we think are potentially awaiting us in the summer. We have perhaps the charges out of Georgia for the tape conversation of Trump interfering with the elections in Georgia, trying to get them to just give him the votes +1. Luckily, it's all on tape. And, there are other matters. We have the DA in Manhattan County who's going forward with his case. It's supposed to be tried early next year. Those things can change, but that would be good. And there is the question of, will Jack Smith, a special counsel, be dropping something in Washington, D.C. having to do with the insurrection and the planning of it and the false electors and all of that. My partner and I in law agree on a lot of things, but one of them is about our advocacy. We believe that if you're teaching, you're bringing somebody along with you, how you learned a case. It's one of the best ways to inform somebody else's judgment to agree with you or not. But we also suffer in this nation those who are not interested in teaching, but more interested in tricking and in misleading, false facts and so forth. I may have mentioned, I love this by Cicero, and the names that have been given to his various debating tactics. And one of them is praetorian, which is that he says something, passes over it, and then goes on to the main argument. So I pass over the fact that he kicks children in the street and that he abandoned his mother when she needed him the most for health care. And I go on to the fact that as a member of our government, the Roman Senate, that he has taken money from the till. Praetorian, and then the main complaint. Now, some parts of what Cicero said may have been true, and he paid for it because they cut off his head. They cut off his hands because of what he wrote when he wrote the Philippics against Mark Antony. And Mark Antony's wife cut off his tongue because he talked. So they're very severe with bad lawyers in those days, or what they considered bad lawyers. So we have something like that now. We have a lot of people actually taking the side of the alleged criminal whom we all believe we've heard enough to know what he did, and in part because he admitted it to us, and there are tapes and corroboration and so forth. And we've seen pictures of the boxes at his place. Now, this is in the indictment. And what my suggestion is, I think of advanced placement history when I was in high school. And it was a Jesuit school, but the person who taught us was a history teacher, was not a Jesuit. And he would bring into the classroom tapes and records of historic figures when they had these electronic devices to preserve what they said, to inform us. We got books filled with former important documents in our history. You know, like the Gettysburg Address. And then we talked about the context and the background and so forth. Okay, so why am I saying that? I'm saying that because there's a very important document in history that's been created. And it's one of the more responsible documents I've seen in the sense of its clarity, its accuracy, its timeliness, its purpose, and the need that our country had for an indictment against those who had done wrong that appeared to float high above their responsibility and obligation without being forced to account for their misconduct. This indictment that Special Counsel Jack Smith put together has all of those indicia. So what am I saying? It's a 49-page document. I suggest you read it. You may have already, but read it. I read it carefully. And, you know, I've been talking about it, and I'm thinking about maybe even writing some summary. But it's not so long a document, and it is not difficult to read or understand. It doesn't have legalese like some have. You have lawyers out there saying, it's a speaking indictment. Well, the way I look at it is whether it's a civil complaint or an indictment in a federal or state case, you have to think that this document is going to go before a jury. And it should be a roadmap for them, subject to whatever redaction the court may require on the way to the jury's deliberations. And so we, as a jury of citizens who seek to find out if it upholds the qualities that I say, or to inform us so we can argue in the days and weeks and months ahead that this is a legitimate document and puts to rest the notion that Trump was innocent in any of the several ways he lies about. So I respectfully suggest that you read it. If you have a member of your family old enough or interested enough in such things like I was, have them read it. Because this will teach them character, in my opinion, you be the judge, and the responsibility of public officials who get it right. I have said in the past that if you look back at Watergate, there were two sets of lawyers, those who went to jail and those who put them there. And the ones who put them there were my heroes as a young man. And I think I was already on my way working on these matters when this was happening. That's what we need now in America. We need citizens to understand what's important, the standards that guide us, and to support and work for them. I have said in some of the appearances in the last several days that I see this indictment as a pivot toward the restoration of our republic. I always thought that would be true. I think this is the answer to the Sir Thomas More quote I like, that how could you stand in the winds that would blow if there wasn't law, there wasn't a constitution, there weren't rules, there weren't terms of conduct. This indictment is all of those things. And the judge may be foul, we'll deal with it. There may be efforts to affect what goes on in the courtroom from outside of the courtroom, we'll deal with it. The fight is on. That's it. And that's what I've been pushing for, and that's what I think many people have been pushing for. Show us that you got some cojones and go after these guys. And I think it's nice that Trump is basically the solitary evil protagonist in this courtroom drama. This will be compared for years going forward, whatever the outcome, for what we did and how we did it, and did it work to restore the nation. So I think you should keep that in mind. Some of the incidentals that I get a kick out of is that Hillary Clinton was abused, wrongly charged, without being charged. It compromised her campaign. I am thinking of Lordy Comey on this regard. I am thinking of Trump and others who pushed it. I am thinking of Fox that didn't deny the rumor that there was an indictment for her that was sealed. All those things. And what was it about? It was about how she handled confidential material. Nothing has happened to her because she did nothing. But the man who led charges of, lock her up, he's now in the crosshairs of an historic prosecution for his misconduct. And we're talking about top secret material that could compromise our own defense and our relationships with nation states around the world. No small thing. In prosecutions, there are easy and hard prosecutions. We talk about one-by drug cases. Now, you may not know what that is, but that's the shorthand for two people meet in the street, and there's an exchange of money for drugs, unlawful drugs. And how is that a one-by drug case? It is because the person supplying the money is an undercover agent who's taping the meeting, and the person who's supplying the drugs is the target of that undercover investigation. At a trial with that kind of evidence, what do you have? You have a person who's on tape. You have the agent who got the drugs. There was a surveillance team. There may have been a radio hookup to the undercover who was talking to the buyer. So it's a no-brainer plea and begging for some consideration on the part of the defendant. So what do we got in Trump's case? We got tape recordings. We got witnesses. We got boxes. We have an aide of his. They call him this back man. They have a less polite name for people that travel behind, say, a politician and do what he or she wants. And in this case, the back man, if I cleaned it up a little bit, he was in the Navy. He worked in the White House. He continued working for Trump when Trump left D.C., and he maneuvered some of the boxes. So, and then we have pictures of them. I may attach a couple that is not from the indictment, but in the indictment, they have pictures. Just like any kid would want, like Trump would require. And part of me wonders why, since we're at the age, that we didn't insert the tape recordings. But the next best thing is we have excerpts from the transcripts of these tape recordings. So you have the tape recordings. You have Trump admitting to things. You have... One more comment. I was avoiding moving traffic, very unusual. So we have... wow, there's like a traffic jam on our dirt road. So we have all the necessary elements to make this a slam dunk case, like a one-by drug case. That's all I'm saying. So Trump always talks about he wanted another Roy Cohn, one who would stand by him and do what was necessary. And Roy Cohn was a corrupt lawyer in New York who died ill, disbarred, maybe penniless, because he was trying to get money from Trump, who wouldn't give him money. He was the mouthpiece for mobsters. He's involved in many a bad deal. He took clients' money, didn't give them service, didn't refund the money, didn't always get the result that he promised. So this genius lawyer was a parasite. And Trump considers him his hero. He wants a lawyer like Roy Cohn. And he treated a lawyer in this case that way. And the lawyer was basically asked to help Trump, conceal these documents and so forth. So like I said, back in Watergate, some lawyers go to jail, some lawyers prosecute those. Will that lawyer go? I don't know what his deal is, but I do know he had to supply his notes and testify before the grand jury. And he may be, well, quote, friendly witness, in the sense that he's not being treated as a target or a subject, and maybe he's not, well, maybe he has gotten immunity, but immunity based on cooperation, if nothing else. So, those are a few of my thoughts. I am preoccupied a little bit with something we've worked so long to make happen, to encourage those in responsible positions to do it. And give the devil his due. Black Jack Smith brought it home, and his team in Florida and elsewhere. So this is a good day, a good series of days. And on Tuesday, we'll have our first glimpse at what, well, Judge Cannon is going to be like. And is she going to stay in this case? And that's a big issue. So, good evening from my Cathedral of Trees. And I'll probably talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.